Hello, friends, and welcome to Monday's Kings of Anglia Ipswich Town podcast. Yes, it's Monday. Yes, the weather's not very good. And yes, Town still haven't won a game. But console yourself, friends, because today is an historic day. For the first time in Kings of Anglia history, all 5 kings are on the same podcast. And I'm going to start, of course, with the most popular king, the man who, when he's not on the show, we get complaints saying, yeah, it was all right, but it needed #more bacon, #bacon and mash. Can I just say to those people who do that, please stop, because Mike's ego is already large enough. We don't need to inflate it any further. The man like Big Porker, Mike Bacon, how are you? King of Kings.
Well, that's a fantastic introduction. Thank you very much, Heath. It's quite. And if you do stop doing #more bacon, and I won't come on. So it's up to you. Quite simply, the only reason I'm on here is because of that. I've been coerced, but yes, I'm here and looking forward to a good chat.
Yeah, Mike's here against his will, so he'd have you believe. The man you were with watching Town at the weekend, or 2 of the men, I should say, Stuart Watson, the doctor. Stewie, how are you?
Morning. Yeah, very well, thank you.
Are you excited for this historic show?
Very much so.
Excellent. Roscoe, the beard is looking more and more lustrous each time I see you. What's the regime at the moment? Is it just let it grow?
I just woke up 10 minutes ago, and it's just, it is what it is, how I woke up. So there we go.
See, a lot of people might think that's Roscoe joking, but I genuinely believe that is the case. We all know that Ross goes from asleep to awake in 0.0001 second. So there we go. He goes from asleep to podcasting in less than a minute. And the man who wasn't at Portman Road this weekend because he was just attending a wedding, lovely little event there. Actually, probably the first since COVID hit, I'd imagine. How are you? How was the wedding? Tell us all about it.
It was very nice, thank you. Good friends, good food, good times.
Did you manage to stay off your phone and avoid the Town score?
Yeah. Far too much going on. So yeah, don't know. I still don't know the score now, so I'm looking forward. I'm looking forward to hearing all about it.
We'll do a big reveal in a second. I should just mention before we get going, of course, the show brought to you in association with Manscaped.com and friends, New Wolsey Theatre, for reasons I'll get into in a bit. Very exciting indeed. But boys, let's start. We always have to start with the game. Ipswich Town still searching for that first win of the season, 5 games in. I'll continue to say it's not how we hoped/expected this season to start. A 2-2 draw at home with MK Dons on Saturday. Should we just start with opening thoughts, and then we'll come back to kind of analysing the game itself? But Mike, you were there Saturday. What did you make of it?
Well, of course, a lot of frustration again, wasn't it? I mean, it was almost sort of it was just as I said when we did a little video afterwards with Stuart, Morecambe-esque all over again, looking like you're going to grab the win, and then someone makes a bit of a rock up, basically. So yeah, I mean, look, it's the frustration levels are growing every match now. But we mustn't get over carried away about it. It is still early days, and they really could have, should have, and all that sort of thing. But do you know what? I enjoyed the game. It was entertaining. I mean, I can remember 4 or 5 years ago, 20 minutes into a match with a Mick McCarthy game, I'd be reading my programme. I was so bored. I mean, it was literally so dull. And even perhaps not Mick's even in some of the Lambos days, you know, it was just dull. But you couldn't take your eye off it. My hands, my fingers were working like 100 to the dozen, tapping things out. And Stewie was tapping. We couldn't talk to each other. There was so much going on, you know. So look, it's frustrating. Let's not beat around the bush. They should have won a game by now. They know they should. It's no good keep pouring out the same stuff. But it was entertaining. There's lots of things you can see are going to be right there. They just got to stop making these mistakes they're making just so ridiculous. It's frightening, you know. I mean, for some reason, our defence and our midfield suddenly think they're like Franz Beckenbauer, and you probably never heard of him, have you? But anyway, and people like him, you know, who could dribble out from the back and do just, I'm not saying hoof the ball, but just move the ball and don't get caught. And yeah, so entertaining, but sadly, you know, it's points that count, isn't it? You know, we can sit here all day talking how entertaining it is, and you know, we finished 10th in the league with entertainment huge, but middle of the table, that's no good.
I'd just like to point out for the listeners' benefit that I do know who Franz Beckenbauer is. I have heard of Franz Beckenbauer. So there you go, Mike. You're not alone there. Stewie, Mike's right though, isn't it? I mean, yes, they've not won yet, but good Lord, it's been entertaining thus far, isn't it?
Yeah, four goals. Woodwork struck 2 or 3 times in that match. We do have to remind ourselves just how poor. I mean, Mike sort of talked about some of the Mick McCarthy stuff, the Lambert stuff as well. Even the back end of last season under Cook. How many times were we talking about going a whole game without a shot on target? Let alone it's so it's. I can get used to watching this team. We were told Paul Lambert talked a lot about, oh, I'm going to deliver rock and roll football. This feels more like rock and roll football to me. This is, fullbacks bombing on, taking risks, being on the front foot, delivering on that at the moment. And the hope is that the game management and all the other little stuff, the naivety, I think Paul Cook called it afterwards, that kind of gets eradicated and these mistakes sort of lessen over time and the good stuff remains and it all comes together. But frustration is the word, isn't it? Frustration is the word that playing some good stuff in attack, but just gifting goals away. And it's becoming a recurring theme. And go back through these 5 games now in all competitions, or if this had happened and if the Fraser penalty had gone in, if Bon hadn't missed at Cheltenham, if you can go on and on. At some stage, you can't keep talking about ifs, buts, and maybes. As Mick McCarthy said, if my auntie had balls, she'd be my uncle. It's happening too often now, and it needs to stop.
Still very much, I'd like to stress, boys, in the bottom half of the table, the Heath hot take remains valid and spot on. Roscoe, your boy, Macaulay Bon, bounced back in emphatic style from an extraordinary miss on Tuesday night, an extraordinary miss, to an extraordinary goal. Good Lord. I've watched this goal so many times. Town put out an unbelievable angle on it yesterday when you see that the ball sailing across the pitch from KVY. Fantastic ball. And then Bond kills it out the air, takes it slightly to the side, and then the finish, unbelievable. What was that like, actually being pitch side, seeing that?
Annoyingly, I was the other side of the pitch, so I couldn't see it. But as I said, that angle is very good indeed, and appreciation to Macaulay Bon. As you know, Macaulay spoke to Mike after the game. He doesn't normally pray, but he prayed, and I'm sure he prayed for some goals. And that first one, oh, what a beauty! The question is, are you entertained? Because I don't think we're going to be seeing any drab 0-0s. I jinxed it now. Wimbledon game is going to be 0-0 now. But the goals keep coming, don't they? Unfortunately, we just can't, defend. But we'll get into that.
This has to be karma for Stu and Hutchie and Roscoe as well. Sitting through, I mean, Roscoe is even worse for you because you were watching on the iFollow feed last season. The kind of torrent of dull 0-0 draws that kind of blended into one. I think they went like 4 years without scoring, didn't they, towards the end of last season? Hutchie, you weren't there, but you obviously do know the score now. It was 2-2. I can confirm it. I'm assuming you've probably seen the goals. What did you make of it from afar? You must have looked at the team. You must have looked at the highlights. What do you make of it from?
Yeah, I've seen the goals. If you're gonna play long ball football, and I put that in some inverted commas, that's the way to do that. That's targeting an area on the pitch. Really, it was Vincent Young, wasn't it, with the crossfield, and that's pinning a defender, targeting a defender, testing a defender. It's not aimless. It's not hopeless. It's playing a clever, direct pass, and then the touch was good, but that finish was brilliant, wasn't it? I bet he didn't really expect to score that with a left foot in, probably within a few inches of the only place in the goal where that could have gone. Brilliant.
Absolutely fantastic. Boys, where does that rank in terms of goals you've seen at Portman Road in recent history? Because I'm struggling to think of better ones recently. Anyway, any thoughts on that, Stuart? You've probably been at most of the games over the last few years.
Right up there. I think it's probably my favourite since the J-Tab header against Middlesbrough. Towering J-Tab header from a Teddy Bishop deep cross. I think that would have been my favourite. This might just usurp it because of the backstory of what had happened with Macaulay at Cheltenham just a few days earlier. The pass, the touch, the finish.
Yeah.
Lovely stuff.
Absolutely fantastic stuff. Mike, shall we look at the good and bad of the game? We'll get into the nuts and bolts of it, shall we? You've written a piece this morning online, doing very well read. this morning. Weekend winners and losers. You've written that this week. What stood out for you as good from the game? I guess we have to start, don't we, with Mr. Bon showing some real character to do what he did in this game.
Well, absolutely. I mean, bear in mind he was like the social media Rick of the week, the laughing joke of everything after that Cheltenham miss, which of course lots of people got great delight in taking the mick out of that. I mean, for him to turn around and come out and play like that, I remember me and Stu were sitting side by side, and when the ball was played over to him and he took his touch, Stu said to me, "Hit it." I remember Stu looked at me and went, "Go on, hit it," and he did. Now that takes some confidence after he couldn't score from like 6 inches to thump in from, but fantastic credit to Macaulay Bonne. I mean, to do that, and then the poacher's goal. The second goal, actually, you see, everyone's like going on about the second goal's a proper centre forwards goal, you see, hanging down that back post. The cross comes in, defender's head spins 360 degrees because he's like, where the hell has he gone? And he's behind you, mate. That's where he's gone, and he's got it in. And that was a just okay. It wasn't spectacular, but from a footballing angle, that was just as good a goal because he's pulled off his marker, got to the back post. Wonderful. And the other quick point I made in my column this morning. Carl Edwards. I mean, wow. Again, me and Stu were talking, we're saying he's actually our player. He's not Selena. He's not Fraser. He's not some of these other guys we've had. Who's the Derby County guy who's now at Derby?
Tom Lawrence.
He's not Lawrence. He's our player. Incredible. 3-year deal we've got him for. And he was gorgeous to watch on the ball. I mean, he just slid past, danced past people, and it was he was he deserved to be on the winner's side. He pulled a couple of balls back across the 6-yard box. No one was there. I mean, Piggott was on the bench, so there was no one there. Macaulay Bonne had done his bit. We need an attacking midfielder to be on the end of them, or we need another striker up there to be on the end of them. They were superb. I mean, what a highlight Carl Edwards is. I mean, fantastic wing play. And more important, as I said, he's a 3-year deal at Ipswich Town, which is great. Yeah,
looking more and more like the steal of the century, that, isn't it, Stewie? Where does he rank in terms of players who are excited at Town? There have been, in the recent history, at least, certainly under Mick McCarthy and others, there've not been that many players who you think, bloody hell, every time he gets the ball, something could happen here. But where would you rank him in terms of excitement factor for Town players in recent times?
We've only seen him for 3 appearances, one of which was off the bench so far, but everything he's done so far, sometimes with players, you can just tell virtually from the first touch, the first dribble, there's something here. And we felt like that from the minute he came on for his debut at Burton, backed it up at Cheltenham. I knew going into this game that Town fans were going to love him, and I talked about hearing that one of the most beautiful sounds in football is the clatter of seats as people stand up in anticipation when someone gets the ball. And he is that player, Kyle Edwards. He's got that lovely... The best dribblers in football they don't do it with their feet. They do it with their upper half of their body. If you watch Lionel Messi, he doesn't manipulate the ball with his feet. He just sends people the wrong way with the slightest little feint of the shoulder or drop of the body. And that's what Kyle Edwards does. And combine that with the most blistering acceleration over the first 2 or 3 yards. He's got that way of sort of slowing himself down, which slows the defender down, and then bursts away with a turn of pace. And those two things combined makes him really good to watch. I hope we're not getting too carried away with him, but for Ipswich to have got him in League One is outrageous, really. The stars aligned. The Championship is in a financial mess at the moment. Reading were under embargo. Bournemouth weren't really in a position to sort of be doing deals at the time. And Ipswich swooped, and you can see now why Mark Ashton and co dropped everything and pulled the plug on Jacobs the way they did over that weekend to get him, because I could get used to watching Kyle Edwards in action.
Let's get carried away, Stewie. Let's get carried away. We haven't got that much to be excited about. Kyle Edwards, probably the greatest player in Ipswich Town history, I reckon.
Mike's right, though. The difference is they've had exciting players before, but they've been borrowed, and you're kind of thinking, well, let's enjoy them while they can. People, Fraser from Bournemouth was probably the last time people kind of got really excited in that way. But he's ours, and he's on a 3-year deal, and that's great.
Can I also note, before we move on, peek behind the curtain time, Stu, you made reference to the first goal going in and there being a delay on your goal update because you were applauding from the press box. That is very much against press box etiquette. You're not meant to show any sort of partisanship, applause, booing, whatever. In any sport, whatever you're covering, the press do not get involved in that way. But you felt it was worthy of a little clap, did you?
I wasn't alone. I think it's very rare that it's quite, press boxes are meant to be neutral places, not always adhered to. The MK Dons media man got a little bit carried away with their first goal. And they're, fair enough, they're club employees, but certainly for us kind of working in outside media, it's not the done thing. But I wasn't alone in just stopping and applauding that one. That was deserved.
Yeah, normally if you show any sort of partisanship in a press box in any sort of sport that you're covering, you'll get the same look as if you walk into a shop now not wearing a face mask. I'd very much give you that look. If you're clapping next to me, I'll give you the eyes. I'll give you the keen stare. What are you doing? Disgrace. Be professional. Roscoe, give us some more good stuff about the game.
What can I do then, pitch side? Am I not allowed to celebrate a little fist pump? What can I do?
I don't know.
I just get up. I just get up and film the fans celebrating. So that's my celebration.
Just film. Plus, you're obviously a law unto yourself anyway. You're an entirely different species, Roscoe. So,
and you turn up wearing an Ipswich Town jacket, Ross. Yeah. You've already put your colours on your chest.
This is also a man who turned up when we went to do the Fabio Wardley interview wearing a Fabio Wardley t-shirt. So he's got no problem nailing his colours to the mast. Roscoe, give us some other good stuff about the game before we get on to the obvious negatives.
Oh, the obvious good was what Mike and Stu said, and just Macaulay straight away. I know he's my boy, but for him to step up and score that goal after the Cheltenham game, he put the post out on socials and stuff. I'm sure all week he was probably watching that back, or maybe he wasn't actually. Maybe it's best not to watch it back. But as the boys said about Carl Edwards, what a player. He's definitely better than Guion Edwards, I'll tell you that. He was my boy last season, but Guion had just a 2-month spell where he was unbelievable, but he then just disappeared. But no, it's just great that we took the lead twice. Unfortunately, that lead didn't last that long, and of course we'll get on to the negatives in a minute, but it's just good that we finally was able to score that second goal after the previous weeks. When we lost against Cheltenham and Burton, we weren't able to find that second goal to get the win. And we thought it was the moment, weren't it? We were actually going to win a game, but unfortunately not. But we'll get on to further topics in a minute.
Yeah,
do you want a couple more positives before we move on?
Yes, please.
I thought Hayden Coulson had an encouraging debut without sort of going overboard. I think there's more to come from him, but you can see, but it sounds like he's still he had COVID quite badly. There was after effects of that. Paul Cook said he's carrying a bit of a knee problem as well. He got subbed sort of midway through the second half, but I thought you could see the attacking intent from him and what he's going to bring. And we talked about having sort of a mirror image of Kane Vincent-Young on the other side, and can see the potential there for him and Edwards to be a real threat down that left-hand side. So looking forward to seeing some more of him. What else was I going to mention? Oh, Scott Fraser. Finally get to see Scott Fraser in the number 10 position. We talked a lot about that in the build-up. I thought he looked a lot more effective in there. I think in a really understated way, not in the same way that we're waxing lyrical about Kyle Edwards, but Scott Fraser, I think, is you can see his quality and his class there. We talked a lot about the first goal, and rightly so, but the assist for that second, do not underestimate how good a cross that was from Scott Fraser. Sort of bent it in that perfect zone between goalkeeper and defence, dissected the 6-yard box, that corridor of uncertainty, and obviously Macaulay's alert at the far post. But I thought that was the best sort of 9-10 combo that we've seen so far. Cook's tried a lot of different combinations up there. Fraser just off of Bonn. I thought there's a bit of potential there with those two.
I love that term, corridor of uncertainty. There's quite a few things you could apply that to in life. Hutchie, what did you make of the lineup? We spoke on Thursday's show, which was just the two of us compared to 5 of us today. We talked about Joe Pigott potentially dropping out of the side. Was it time? And it was time at the weekend. He was on the bench, and by all accounts, Bonn and Fraser did the job. So is that now Bonn's job to lose, do you think? We said that Pigott is very much came in as the 20 goal a season striker. What do you make of that one?
Well, that's what we were talking about, wasn't it? I don't think you can go with him forever. I mean, I was interested that it was Bonn that got that nod ahead of Piggott to go with Fraser. But of course, it's Bond's shirt to lose now. The man's just scored. The man's just scored twice. He's come back from his big blunder in the week with 2 really good goals. So yeah, of course, it's his shirt to lose now. I would imagine, particularly if Fraser's played well in the hole behind him.
Interesting. Mike, give us some negatives. Obviously, there are obvious negatives. I've watched it a few times. I'm still not entirely sure what Lee Evans was doing for the equaliser, because he looked like he was shaping up to pass, but the only person he could have been passing to was the keeper. There was no one else around him. Really frustrating.
Well, look, everybody now plays from the back. Okay.
Yeah.
When Barcelona played tippy-tappy football, everyone started playing tippy-tappy football. When people started playing just one up front, everyone copies one up front. Football is unique, a sport, and as much as it doesn't really think for itself, it just copies whatever the best team is doing and thinks it can apply it to itself. And playing out from the back is what do fans love to see it? Yeah, I suppose to a degree they do, but there can be overplaying. And sometimes, and when you're in the Premier League and you watch Premier League football, if you watch Match of the Day and you watch it, the better players can play out from the back a lot more comfortably than League One players. And Lee Evans was just, I suppose, just dawdling, really. I mean, he was just past the ball and just didn't seem to be aware what was around. He's a good player. I mean, he's not start getting on his back too much. I mean, he won't probably make that mistake again this season or next 3 seasons, but he's made it this week. And he was just half asleep. He just was not aware what was around him. Now, whether no one called,
watching it back, I think it's his first touch. It's just really heavy. Carroll does well to sort of receive the ball and turn, and then he passes. And Evans' first touch is just too heavy. And by the time he's not aware of the man sort of behind him. I think you're right. He's then about to sort of pass it back to the goalkeeper, just not aware of someone on him. But that's just having that. It just shows you've got to have that concentration and that sharpness about you at all times. And the first goal wasn't much better either, was it? That was a pretty poor one to concede.
We keep talking about mistakes, and it's very much a theme that we keep returning to. Cook again saying we've got to cut out these silly mistakes. They're really costing us. And last week I suggested to Hutchie that maybe that is a kind of side effect of these players not having played together that much before and not really knowing how each other will react in certain circumstances. And we came to the agreement that was probably a bit right and a bit wrong. Where do you stand on these mistakes that are happening, Stu? Because that has been one of the storylines of the season so far. Town keeps shooting themselves in the foot.
I think you can really legislate for them as a manager, can you? You know, so suddenly people then talk about Cook, but you can do all you want on the training pitches. If they're just individual errors, is that to do with chemistry? Is that to do with coaching? Or is that just they happen from, I don't know. We go looking for reasons for things sometimes. It's just Ipswich have made some individual errors and they've stacked up a little bit. I mean, the first goal is also Wolfenden. It's a bit of a soft foul after he kind of failed to intercept the ball and then tried to rectify his own error. That's a bit of a soft foul. And then it's compounded by Plagkey's positioning not being particularly good. I mean, he was positioned right over to the right-hand side of his goal. It was begging for Scott Twine to put it over on that side. He then, looking at it back, gets some decent glove on that ball and really should, I think, be keeping that out. So it's not been the most convincing starts for him at Ipswich Town thus far. We talked about Lee Evans. We were waxing lyrical about Harper and Evans as a kind of a midfield combo throughout pre-season and after the Morecambe game, but Evans has had a couple of iffy little games in we talked about him not being great at Cheltenham as well. So yeah, I don't really know what to say. Individual errors are individual errors. They happen, and unfortunately they've just been happening a bit too regularly for Ipswich.
Just on the Evans thing there, how did Tom Carroll look when he came on? Obviously there would have been people there, but a lot of people may not have seen the game. It's his first serious time on the pitch. What did he bring when he came on?
I thought he looked okay. I mean, he didn't have a lot of time to do a lot of stuff. See, the thing is with Evans making mistakes and stuff. What do you do? Or Evans and Harper, they didn't seem as dominant on Saturday. I don't know. I haven't seen all the games, but I mean, I just didn't feel they seemed as dominant on Saturday. And you've got you've got Carroll sitting there, you've got Chaplin sitting there. What are you going to keep doing? Is Cook going to continue to is he going to keep making more changes? Is he going to try and find that formula? Because the more this goes on, the more this continual gel word is going to come out. That's to me my problem. Carroll comes on, yeah, he does some nice little touches and stuff, but you don't have enough time in 15 minutes to do a huge amount. I'm sure he's obviously a fine player, just as Chaplin is. But I just, if people need to grab the shirt and make it happen and give Cook a lot easier a ride. Cook's not getting much of an easy ride right now because he could fight. I mean, he's already dropped Piggott. Piggott was Wimbledon's top scorer. He's been a top scorer for years, and within 3 games, he's on the bench. I mean, really, he should have been leading our line from the start and without any problems whatsoever. I mean, I know you got Bon up there as well, but he should really have been, as a lone player, challenging Piggott. Really, within 2 or 3 games, he's already taken his place. And as Andy said, would you drop Bon? Of course, you're not going to drop Bon. So the same with Harper and Evans. Really, you want them to dominate. So you've got players on the bench who can't get in the starting lineup. Now, I think, what's Cook going to do on Saturday? A little way off.
I think the debate around midfield now, as I've seen a lot of people saying, we lack a bit of a destroyer in there. For all the nice, entertaining football, we need someone who can break it up and like to tackle, and that's what you need in League One. And I said a few weeks ago about sort of the fullbacks leaving big gaps, and a prime Cole Scouse is someone who intercepts and covers gaps and does things like that. Even Flynn Downs, who's obviously left for reasons, he would be well suited to that. But what I would say is you don't play a team like MK Dons every week. They dominate the football. They're one of the best, if not the best, in this division at keeping possession. And it was a game, I always felt it was a game where Ipswich's best chance was to win it down the flanks with the attacking fullbacks backing up the wingers and overloading MK Dons wing-backs. And that's where they got a lot of their joy. Talked about Edwards and others. And the potential where they were going to lose it was getting overrun in midfield, which ultimately is the game we're on. Is it any surprise that Evans and Harper sort of tired? There's a midfield 2 kind of chasing, maybe getting overrun a little bit in midfield. And maybe it was a surprise when Cook's kind of change was to bring Carroll on and go with Carroll kind of sat in front of the back 2. And it looked like quite a conservative move at 1-1 at the time. But he just said, look, we were getting overrun in midfield and we just needed to calm ourselves down a little bit. So you can kind of see the logic there with that. So I would like to see a little bit more sort of controlled aggression from Harper. Lost a couple of sort of 50-50s in that game. I mean, the one right at the very end where they probably should have lost it when Josh Martin hit the bar. Harper was, looking a little bit tired in that second half and then lost out on a tackle. So, that midfield balance can be interesting. Carroll's clearly got ability. I mean, again, he's another one that's played Premier League and Championship all his career and was doing pretty well at QPR by all accounts till injury struck last season. You could see that with some of his passes when he came on. So, just need to find that combo and start bedding it in now, don't they? All over the pitch in all departments.
Just on the peek behind the curtain side of things as well, Stu. I know in your Stu Says bit you did yesterday, speaking to Paul Cook after the game, you get the sense that maybe he's a little bit drawing criticism from things that are being said and being asked to him, where maybe there isn't criticism. I note a reference to him having a chat with a fan as he walked off the pitch. Can you give a little insight into that, into what Cook's like?
Yeah, I think he's obviously been around long enough to know how moods change in football a little bit. And all I can say is that the post-match press conference, every question was posed in a very soft, positive light. That was a really entertaining game, wasn't it, Paul? And you must believe the way you're playing that win will soon come. And Carl Edwards was really good, wasn't he? And he kind of, I've seen this with a lot of managers. They don't sometimes often listen to the question. I think they've got it in their mind to get on the front foot about what they perceive the question might be. So Paul then sort of, it could be a question about Carl Edwards is really good. And before you know it, Paul Cook's gone off on a tangent about sort of negativity. And I know what the headlines will be out there. And I know what radio phone-ins will be like. And I've been around football long enough and all of that sort of stuff. So, there was some boos at the end, not insignificant boos, but a very sort of a short burst of frustration, I would say, more than anything else. I don't know. That's a bigger debate, isn't it, at the moment, about where they're at and how people are feeling about it.
We'll come on to that in due course, Stewie. Thanks for teeing that up. Any other notes from the game before we move on, boys? Anything else you want to mention? Roscoe, Nicky, Stewie?
I'll quickly just jump in about playing, around the back, because I think it's a win and lose situation, really. Because of course we were frustrated with Mick McCarthy's hoop ball, and then we're frustrated with Paul Lambert's, pass around the back. And I think playing both of those ways, I don't think you can win sometimes. You just get frustrated with it. Definitely if like moments like Lee Evans, where he loses the ball and then they go and score from that. And then if you hoof the ball up and it just goes out into row Z and, no one's winning the ball and it's just back and forward. Sometimes you just can't win that way. And I don't know. I'm frustrated with, playing around the back for sometimes, but, I think you just got to have certain players who can play that way. And if Joe Piggott's playing, then hoof it up to him. He heads it on to a winger, or one of the goals where it was a great pass to Cole Edwards, and then boom. But
they're not fannying around at the back like they were under Lambert, though, are we? We're not seeing like 100 passes between the two centre halves and that sort of stuff. This looks like a team that is willing to mix it up. We've seen some of the goals have come from direct play, but Bon is a sort of a counter-attack outlook with his running in behind. So I've seen enough to think that this is a team that isn't going to just stick to one style of play, that they are going to mix it up a little bit. So it's just one of those things. I mean, Ipswich could have scored from Wes Burns kind of intercepted when MK Dons were trying to play out from the back. That was a big moment in this game. Not getting that killer second at the start of the second half when they were on top. I didn't probably appreciate it at the time, but maybe Burns could have squared that. There might have been better options rather than sort of go for goal. But that little period where Edwards flashed a few crosses across the box and Burns hit the post and Bon put one just wide or saw one deflected just wide. That was probably the little moment in the game where if the second had gone in, ifs, buts and maybes again, different story.
Yeah, but you're right. But you're right, Stu. I mean, but Burns' chance was a terrific chance. He's just bearing down on goal one-on-one. Goldie made quite a good save, actually. Got a hand to it, didn't he? I think tip sort of moved on the post. But I mean, that's a goal scoring opportunity all day long, just as Bonds was at Cheltenham. And both times then you go 2-0 up. I would have thought if we'd gone 2-0 up at Cheltenham, if we'd gone 2-0 up against Milton Keynes, I know it's all if you win two games, and we're sitting here having a completely different conversation. They are fine margins. That's where we're at the moment. But as you're right, Stu, ifs, buts, and all this can't go on forever. But that was a great chance. Burns, we just forget that a little bit when under all that went on. That was a one-on-one with the keeper. Just come straight at him.
Okay, well let's draw a line under the game there. Then Town still looking for their first victory of the season, but it's certainly not been dull thus far, and there have been some good goals. There have been goals and some cracking goals as well, so that's tremendous. Something very exciting now, boys. Obviously, KOA Army, we're already sponsored by manscaped.com. Use code KOA at manscaped.com for 20% off and free delivery. We also now have welcomed another sponsor on board for the next month or so. Very exciting, this. The new Wolsey Theatre in Ipswich. They've got a new show coming up called Never Lost at Home, which is Ipswich Town themed, hence they're getting on board with the Kings of Anglia podcast. It's showing from Thursday the 16th of September to Saturday the 9th of October, with tickets starting from just £10, available from the new Wolsey website. And just to fill you in a little bit about the show, Never Lost at Home, it may give you a little inkling as to what it's about. It's a follow-up to Our Blue Heaven, which was the sellout show of 2018, celebrating the 40th anniversary of Town winning the FA Cup. Well, this one brings back Peter Peverley as the iconic Bobby Robson, to tell the story of the 1980-81 season, which Mike, of course, will remember well, being the most experienced among us, shall we say. The greatest, most would argue, in the history of Ipswich Town Football Club, when Robson's small, skillful and heroic squad finally came the UEFA Cup, the first European trophy in the club's history, and, of course, the only. To celebrate the 40th anniversary of the famous victory, the new Wolsey is telling the story through the eyes of a family of obsessive Ipswich fans as they follow their heroes around Europe by plane, train, car, ferry and car boot. Through Greek riots, Polish revolution, Czech blizzards and French mud, players and fans both fight their way to a final party in the streets and canals of Amsterdam. And if you're going to have a party, Amsterdam's where you want to do it, boys. With a soundtrack of 1980s hits played live by the multi-talented actor musicians at New Wolsey, football sequences recreated by a community chorus of young people, and a gallery of famous faces. Never Lost at Home is a musical celebration of family and community, guaranteed to lift your spirits whether you're a football fan or not. It sounds tremendous. Mike, you were around, of course. I was around technically. I was in the world at that point. But this is a tremendous season, isn't it, to remember? And it sounds like a fantastic show and a way of doing it.
Well, it sounds fantastic. I'll tell you a little story, shall I? Because
please do.
On Tuesday night, just gone, I was sitting having a drink with a man who covered all 66 games for the Ipswich Star and East Anglian Daily Times, Neil Manning, who's actually lives in Cyprus, but he was back for 3 weeks, and we met up for a drink. And I didn't tell him about this because he'll be back in Cyprus by the time it comes out. But he covered all 66 games that year.
Wow.
And home and away. So obviously, and it sounds fantastic. I mean, what a great thing to do. I know that Bobby Robson, it's the guy who plays Bobby Robson, is fantastic. And the cup one, the 40-year cup celebrations went down a storm, didn't it? I think it's out everywhere. I mean, so this is it shows how good the first one was, because they're doing this one, and it sounds brilliant. It's going to be terrific. I mean, it's going to be well worth going to. I mean, I'm going to go. What a year. I mean, obviously, you don't really want me harking on, do you, about 1981 for the next half an hour, surely?
Not half an hour, no. So just a reminder then, £10 a ticket, that's what they start at. New Wolsey website, and the show runs Never Lost at Home between Thursday 16th of September and Saturday 9th of October. And we are hoping to bring you a KOA special, hopefully speaking to Peter Pevley, who plays Bobby Robson, director, and maybe one of the players from that tremendous season. I just thought, boys, before we moved on, we're talking theatre, we're talking treading the boards, we're talking acting, darling. Of the five kings, who would you reckon would be the most effective / best actor? Who would be most at home treading those boards? Stewie, I believe we've had this conversation before. You told us that you were something of a showy child. You enjoyed performing as a youth.
Yeah, it's hard to believe now, isn't it? Like it kind of tagged you. Tagged me and Andy as being a couple of dullards. But yeah, I did. I was in all the school plays and everything. I think I said before I played in some. I can't even remember what it was. Some Greek thing, and I played the sort of the comedy character, Delirious. Yeah. Had to have a little kiss in there at primary school. That was something. That was a bit of a worry.
Wow.
Who was it?
Oh, I can't remember her name now. I remember getting myself in a bit of a tiz about it. Yeah, always dressing up and putting on little shows as a kid. That I don't know when that went away. I wanted to be a Blue Peter presenter. That was my big thing for a long time. Yeah.
Oh, amazing. I didn't know that. We're learning new things about each other. Did you ever get as far as applying for Blue Peter presentership, Stewie, or had life taken you in a different direction by that point?
No, this was quite a young age. Yeah.
Is Blue Peter still around, by the way, boys? I don't. Your kids are probably still too young, aren't they, to get into that sort of stuff? But I didn't know if Blue Peter is it still running. Never liked Blue Peter. I've got to be honest. Always seemed a bit like more school after school. Anyway, I digress.
You didn't like tortoises being packed up to hibernate and dogs running around. What's not to like? Paper mache.
It was all right, I suppose. Absolutely. Hutchie, fancy a bit of acting?
I was the lead in the school play.
What? Yes. You were the lead?
Yes,
you were the lead?
Yeah. I played a misunderstood shark in a production called Ocean Commotion. And,
Commotion.
He just kept getting the poor guy. He just kept getting blamed for everything. It wasn't him. He wasn't eating people or eating other fish. He was just misunderstood and just making his own way in the world.
Did you approach it from a method acting point of view? Did you live in the sea for a few weeks in the build up?
Yeah, I did. Very deep in the sea. I think I've still got it somewhere. I had a waistcoat that I stitched. Well, my mum stitched.
Yeah,
like a foam fin onto. So I was like bow tie and waistcoat with a little fin on the back.
Amazing. You know what this means, of course? It means there must be pictures and hopefully moving video images of
I'm not sure you're going to find video. You might find a picture. I want to see this. My particular acting career peaked with a seminal role as King Herod in the Christmas production one year. Not a speaking role, but still one that I dominated, obviously. Mickey, you strike me as someone who'd be very comfortable on stage treading the boards, perhaps in a Shakespearean tragedy.
I once played Malvolio in Twelfth Night.
Did you?
Which was quite a hard hitting performance, actually. None of this Ocean Commotion stuff.
You were serious,
mate. You didn't see Ocean Commotion. How do you know it wasn't hard hitting?
Well, no, but what I'm saying is Ocean Commotion sounds sort of a bit frivolous compared with Twelfth Night, if you don't mind me saying.
Serious acting only. Sorry.
Yeah.
Twelfth Night is a Shakespeare. Well, it's a tour de force of Shakespeare quality, of which Malvolio is one of the lead characters, of which I played. So yes, it was quite a thing at the time, and yeah, I was good. If I say
Could
so
you
myself.
give us a little line, Mike? Do you remember?
I don't remember. I don't remember much about it, to be honest. I was only about 13 or 14, so this was sort of pre-war, really. So I can't really, I can't remember much about it. I just remember having to wear a big hat. That's all I remember. I had to wear a big hat.
There we go, Rossi. We can't go on without asking you about your act. You must have been in plays at school and such. What did you get involved in?
I was in plays, but I can't remember the names of them. I think the only one that comes to mind is I played an old man for some reason. I had a beard. So before I had a beard, I had to wear a beard, a hat, and a walking stick. And I just had to walk old.
Okay.
So I can't remember what play it was.
When you had the fake beard on, did you go, I like this. Gonna get one of these later on.
Possibly. No, it was itchy. I didn't like it, actually. I remember, actually, it was itchy. I went, I don't like this. I couldn't wait to take it off when the director went, cut. That
was it.
Yeah, but there we go.
You weren't expecting this level of response, were you, Mark?
I was hoping for it. I wasn't expecting it, but I'm enjoying it. And I also love the idea that Ocean Commotion was like a serious comment on the pillage of the seas, with you playing a shark harassed by mankind. I like it.
Not just mankind, mate. Every sea creature. They were all
everything. There you go then. I enjoyed that little roundup of our acting chops, our history, treading the boards. And boys, I want to move on to another question now. We've not had a Mark's Big Question for a while, and something happened to me this weekend which I thought would make a perfect question. So roll intro if you're listening on podcast. If you're watching on video, you'll see us just stay silent for a couple of seconds while Archie edits in the post edit.
Yeah, giving me more work to do, aren't you?
This is 4156, Andy. There you go.
I'm just going to write it on my little whiteboard. 4156, roll intro.
Mark's Big Question, boys. I hope you all enjoyed that intro. So I was back commentating on fights this weekend, cage side in Norwich. And a kind of side effect of that was that one fight got quite bloody, shall we say. And it was literally right in front of us. Guy caught a shot to the face. Blood sprayed out of the cage. And covered me and my co-commentator. We had it all over our hands, all over my script, all over his phone. Frankly, boys, it's going to be a miracle if I do not contract COVID from this event, but we shall see. Anyway, so obviously that wasn't particularly pleasant. When you can actually smell the blood, the iron in the air. That was what I was doing on Saturday. So, boys, I thought I'd ask you all, experienced, lengthy tenured journalists. I wondered, what's the worst thing that you've encountered that's happened to you in the line of duty? Now, Mike, I've basically thought up this question with you in mind because you have been a journalist for a few more years than many of us, and you are something of a raconteur, shall we say. So what stands out for you as among the worst things that's happened to you? Have you ever been coated in body fluid in the line of duty?
I've never been coated in I've been coated in body fluid, but not in the line of duty. As regards something extraordinary, I mean, I must confess, I did have a situation once that left me rather, let's say, wanting to change my underpants. It was when I was covering. I was covering Ipswich Town at Newcastle back in the Premier days, and for some unknown reason, I was supposed to go up on the Friday. Obviously, we won't go up Friday night, but I couldn't go because my wife had booked us tickets to see Joseph and the amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat in London.
Theatrical.
I tried to get out of, but she wouldn't have it. So I had to go up on Saturday morning with the supporters coach,
right?
Which was fine, and off we went. And when we got to, I looked at my watch. Bear in mind, we had to beat. I'd like to get at the ground an hour and a half before kickoff, but obviously we're dawdling along, and the time is precisely 2:00, and we're just outside Newcastle getting to Washington services. And I thought, well, not too bad. It's going to be a bit of a rush. And then the coach pulled in, and I sat there and said to the guy, why are we pulled in? He said, well, we can't go in yet. We've got to wait for a police escort. All the coaches have. And I sat there thinking, I said, well, what time is the police escort? He said, about 2:50. Well, bear in mind, I needed to do. I was supposed to be doing a runner for the Greenon at the time. I was absolutely messing myself because, quite frankly, it was going to be a complete shambles. Now, you're not going to believe this, but I used my bacon intuition here and thought, well, I can't sit here till 23 with a police escort. So I went around. There was an Ipswich Town fans at Washington services. Obviously, I noticed by the blue and white scarves. I knocked on a window of a car and I said, "Excuse me, are you going to because they were starting the car up. Are you going into ground now?" And they said, "Yeah." I said, "Can I have a lift in?" And they all sort of looked at me and said, "Well," I said, "I'm Mike Bacon from the Green and I need to get in." "Yeah, look at this." Yeah. They all went, "Who?" I said, "Doesn't matter." I said, "Can I just get in?" I said, "You've heard of
in
the Green."
15 years' time, I'll have a blue tick on Twitter.
Exactly.
So.
I said, "You'll regret that comment, fella." Anyway, we're driving in. We're driving. This is the gospel truth. I live out at Shotley. Okay. All right. So, and as we're driving along, I said to the guy who's driving the car, "Thank you ever so much, this pal. Really appreciate it." I just can't say. So, where'd you come from? Do you know what he said?
Shotley,
Shotley,
isn't it?
He lived 2 roads away from me. That's the gospel truth, and he drove me into thingy. So, what was a horrendous experience, all turned out for the good.
And you didn't know him. He lived 2 doors away from you. You hadn't seen him.
2 roads.
Okay, I'm with
2
you.
roads, not 2 doors. No.
Hutchie, you've travelled far and wide in your journalistic career, including working for a national newspaper and writing some big national stories. What's the worst thing that's happened to you in the course of your very important and powerful job?
It's a fairly come on. It's a fairly recent one, actually.
Yeah.
I think we talked about this one before. The Joey Barton incident in the Fleetwood home game in March of 2020. Very, very wet night. Sloppy Portman Road pitch. Poorly tractioned shoes. Slight incline. Andy walks up to try and interview Joey Barton. Slop. Face first in the mud. Absolutely caked in mud. And then proceed to interview Joey Barton.
So
embarrassing.
Are you interviewing him with mud like on
Everywhere.
your person, on your face?
Everywhere. Absolutely caked in it. Again,
if only there was a video of that. Why
there
isn't there
probably is on some kind of CCTV security. It's probably been wiped now, I'd imagine, 18 months later, but it probably existed at one point. Very embarrassing. Joey was very gracious about it.
Well, he's known for being a gracious man, of course.
He is.
Yeah.
I expected nothing less from him.
Yeah. Stewie, you've been travelling the length and breadth of the country covering football for many, many years. What's the worst thing?
I'm a little uncomfortable with this phrase in the line of duty when we've probably got paramedics and policemen and firefighters listening to this. We're talking about slipping over while interviewing football managers.
Being a bit
big
late
medal in the post coming. Probably when we decapitated that deer last season. That wasn't too clever, was it?
That wasn't great.
That wasn't great. In terms of getting covered in body fluids, which seems to be where we're going with this now. I think in the Norwich playoff semi-final when they scored, and there's always a fan that decides that for some inexplicable reason they turn around and give it the big one in the face of the opposition journalists. Sometimes sort of frothing at the mouth, they get a little bit carried away. I've seen other journalists say that that's happened to them on Twitter sometimes. So a little bit of spittle from an opposition fan isn't particularly nice sometimes. I always remember a game at Bournemouth where the press box was back in the middle of the home and away fans, and there was a few projectiles getting lobbed to and fro, sort of over the heads of the assembled press. It's not a dangerous profession, is it? Let's be honest.
Wow. Roscoe.
It is if you're the deer.
Yeah, it was definitely dangerous for the deer. Venison for tea, chaps. Roscoe, tell us about a story where you've experienced unpleasantness in your line of work.
Well, a lot of you guys know I'm very unprepared most times when I go to games, and I'm going to bring up 2 games from last season. I know the season before COVID hit. Portsmouth away and Oxford away, where it rained a lot. The Oxford game was very close to being abandoned. That was how bad the rain was. And yeah, I was very unprepared. I absolutely got drenched from head to toe. And yeah, it was a miserable day. Both games were dreadful as well. We drew 0-0 and we lost against Portsmouth.
Did you have
very wet?
Were you wearing shorts and did you have a coat?
I wasn't wearing shorts for both games, but I didn't really wear like a proper good coat, so I was very wet. So yeah, and also another story is I think this was Lincoln City. I think this is the 5-3 defeat. During the game, I needed a poo.
Oh no!
So I was very much trying to hold it in and praying for half time. Thankfully, I didn't do what you think I would have done.
You didn't do a muzzy carry-on.
No. No. Thankfully, and I don't know if anybody saw, I did somewhat try to run to the toilets. Thankfully, we had our own little. I don't know. Probably the toilet I used probably wasn't allowed for me.
VIP.
I just used it. It probably was. So I wasn't going to use where the fans were because that was just queues. Likelihood. But I just went and just used just a toilet that I found, and I probably wasn't allowed to use it. But yeah.
When you need to go, you need to go. There we go. Let's finish there, shall we? And move away from the sublime to the ridiculous. Let's talk about football, shall we, boys? Because that's what we're here to do. Ipswich Town have played 5 games so far this season. They've not won a single bloody one of them. So I thought we'd just have a little reflection as to what we've made of it so far. How are you feeling, boys? Let me ask you that about Ipswich Town. Andy Hutch-Warren, you look like you want to leave, but how are you feeling 5 games into this season? This is not what we'd expected, is it? We'd hoped for so much more.
Disappointed, unacceptable, but understandable.
That's
going back to the previous slogan. They should have won more, but I think going back to the very top of this, where you guys were talking about the entertainment factor, and it's improved so significantly. There are reasons for optimism. You're not having to search desperately to find those reasons. And I would say the optimism is real. There are players that haven't delivered what we thought they might. There are players that have maybe delivered what we thought, and some that have maybe over-delivered on what we thought. And I genuinely feel at this point that it's all going to come together. I'm not saying they're going to suddenly click and reel off 10 straight victories. I don't think that is going to happen. But I think there's very real reasons for optimism there that make me feel like this team's going to be just fine.
Mike, how are you feeling? You're generally a positive soul, but obviously you're one of these fans, and there are a lot of them out there who live through the real glory days, the proper peak, the zenith of Ipswich Town. And now, as you so memorably said in the season preview, you were going to watch them play Morecambe in the season opener this season, and they still haven't won a game. So how are you feeling about the season to this point?
I am feeling disappointed, like Andy said. I think they should have won a game by now. I don't think it's been the toughest start in the world. I don't really care if they're all 11 different players. I think the quality they have in the squad have been good enough to win a game by now. I'm especially disappointed they lost to Newport in the Cup. I think that was an opportunity wasted. I don't understand it with so many players in the squad. And we've now got likes of Pickett and others sitting on the bench. I believe it's the second round of the League Cup this week. I believe. I don't know if I can't remember because we're out of it. I don't ever remember the second round usually. But we could have a game. We could have a game Tuesday night. I don't know who Newport have got, but we could have a game here Tuesday night or somewhere where you can play a few players who have been sitting on the bench because you've now got a decentish squad, and of course mix in all the youngsters as per usual. Nothing wrong with that. But so I'm disappointed we're out of the League Cup because I think this week we could have had another game and we could win that game, and we might be the one that we win, and suddenly it changes everything. It doesn't matter. We're not going to win the League Cup. We know that. So do we not enter the FA Cup then? Because we're not going to win that either. You can't just, you can't take the stance of we're just not interested because we're not going to win it, or it's just too much baggage. And of course, a lot of them young players who played against Newport don't have another game now, unless they play on I suppose, got the trophy, the under-23 trophy thing. So yeah, disappointed. But as Andy said, there are lots of positives. Let's be honest. There are more positives than negatives. It just doesn't feel that way at the moment.
Stewie, rather than just go around and ask everyone how they're feeling, obviously disappointed is going to be a theme. But in terms of players who have slash surprised, excited you, slash disappointed you, are there names that players maybe have exceeded your expectations and others who have kind of not met them?
I I guess maybe Bonner's perhaps pleasantly surprised me. I didn't realise he was as physical as he is. I knew he could run off the shoulder and score goals, but he looks like a more all-round package to me. And that, I mean, he talked about having an extra 10% with wearing the Ipswich Town badge. I mean, you can tell it's very rare that somebody cares as much in modern football for the badge that they're wearing. And that is, I've not seen somebody love playing for a football club as much as they are Macaulay Bonne. You watch the celebrations and Ross has captured a few from pitch side. He's looking up. He's trying to find everybody in the crowd. He's got all his mates there, all his childhood mates, friends and family. So he's a cult hero in the making. He already is, isn't he? Already so many games in. As I said, sort of maybe a few question marks over the goalkeeper, but it's still early days thus far. Wes Burns seems to be another little bit of a Gwion Edwards to me. I think he's got flashes of quality, but maybe the end product isn't quite there with him at the moment. You could go through them all, and we're trying to bed them all in, aren't we? I think they're going to be absolutely fine. I could get used to watching this. I keep reminding myself, how many games of watching Ipswich Town have blurred into one? How many games have we come away just instantly forgetting about a game of football? How many games have the fans gone away and really questioned the sanity of them paying out money for these matches to go? It's not going to be like that. Whether it's enough for Ipswich to finish in the top two or to have a real shot at promotion this season, whether it's going to take a bit of extra time, I don't know. But it's going to be, I can tell you this for now, it's going to be a great ride, and I think it's going to be a really enjoyable one, and that's all we've wanted. Strap yourselves in, try and enjoy it the best we can. That's all we can do.
Rossi, what have you made of it all? And then we'll move on to something a little bit different to finish the show.
I've had fun. I've enjoyed it. Of course, it'd been nice to win a game, but can't have it all. We're seeing goals. Fans are back. Been to Cheltenham and back. Yeah, it's just
been to Cheltenham and back.
I'm happy.
But obviously, it's still disappointment in there. But can't have it all. It's just, as I said, it's just great that we've been able to go and watch games again after the year we've had. So yeah, I'm going to leave it there, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, Hutchie. Should we move on to something different now? Because, I mean, we've said that you were at a wedding this weekend. That's actually a lie. You've had to take a second job because you're gambling lots of the you're mounting up. But I've just seen some breaking news actually flash up on my phone, which may mean that we may have to review the monetary situation thus far. I'm told by a leader of the Northern Battalion that Pigott has been awarded the goal against Burton. Yeah. Which means retrospectively you win that bet.
Yep.
So let's dig deep into this, because this is big news. This is maybe the biggest news of the summer so far. You won, what was it, 100 grand you put on that? So what did you win?
Let me get my little. I think he was. I'm going to have to go back and check this because I haven't got the odds written down. I'm amazed he's been awarded it. It looked like a defender headed that in. So he is off the mark in an Ipswich shirt officially.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to go back and check the odds for this. But can we also talk about
your money roughly, weren't you?
Probably better than that. It's probably likely to be about 3-1, I would say. Let me go back through. No, he was 2-1, so more than doubling the money. So I put 100 grand on that. So I'd have won 200 grand, which puts me 200 grand up. But before we get onto that, how's this working? We haven't particularly settled this one out yet because he didn't get on at the weekend. He was part of my bet this weekend, and any normal bookmaker that double would have been not voided, but it would have become. I'll be honest, I did put some real money on it myself, and and it halved it. So I actually won this weekend on both teams to score part of it.
Ah, okay.
So does this work in the same way?
Well, yeah. That's real, but it has to do. Of course it does. Yeah. So what did you actually end up winning then?
So I what 50 grand stake this week got me 82,500 back. So
that was your real money bet,
and that was my real money. And at this point, I would like to resign from my job, please, because I've picked up a few £100,000 on Joe Pigott at Burton, another 32 on this one. So yeah, it's actually going quite well, isn't it?
You'll have to do the math, as the Americans say, Hutchie, and tell us how much money you've actually won now and where we are in the grand scheme of things. But this is tremendous news. You've now won 2 bets after what can only be described as a disastrous start to this feature. We might have some more life in it yet. You're going to have some more money to play with, which is great.
I think I'm back to £932,500.
So close. Close.
So I'm actually only £67,500 down.
There you go then. So this feature was building as an example of the pitfalls of betting. Now it's showing that kids get some bets on. You can make some serious money.
Get yourself out there. Make some cash.
Lob some money on things. I assume, Hutchie, it's way too early for you to have considered your £1 million pick for this weekend. Okay, well, we will put out that maybe on social media later this week, or if we do another pod, it will go on there. Boys, it's been tremendous to have all 5 kings around this virtual table today. I've had great fun, and I feel like I've got to know you a bit better as well, particularly around the theatrical background of each of you. I've never ever pictured Mike as a serious actor in a Shakespearean role. So yeah, fantastic. And also Hutchie as the leading man dressed in a shark costume. Fantastic. There's an image I'm going to take with me. Any other business, boys, before we move on and get on with our Monday and indeed the rest of our week? Mike, have you got anything else you want to add? We should also, of course, while we come to you, editor of the Kings of Anglia magazine, how is progress going with that, and when's it going to be on the streets?
Well, that's funny you should say that, because there's been some big progress this week, because on Thursday I sat down with Joe Pigott.
Oh, nice.
To do a big interview with him for the magazine. We sat in a lovely little executive box overlooking the ground, and it was really interesting. Nice to talk to him. He's going to be the main man for the magazine lead and front. Great stories to tell. I'm not even going to start to give you a little teasy weasy, because you'll start to ask me more questions.
Teasy weasy.
Once you ask me more questions, I end up telling you more and more, and then everyone knows what this is all about. So I'm not even going to tell you a thing. Kings of Anglia magazine will be out it's been printed, I think, the 3rd or 4th of September. So it'll be out in the middle of September. We'll be at Planet Blue, hopefully, so you can pick up your King KOA mag. Very popular KOA mag. And thanks also, there'll be some big stuff in there. We're really looking forward to it. So, yes, it's coming along nicely. Thank you for asking.
Without giving away any of the stories, Mike, what's Joe like as a person? Because I've seen him interviewed, and he looks to be perhaps the most laid-back individual I've ever encountered. He also seems to pass more than a passing resemblance to Rodders from Only Fools and Horses. Can you confirm or deny either of those points?
He's a very laid-back man. Yes, he's a very laid-back character. I thoroughly enjoyed speaking to him. I actually said to him, I said, you must get on well with Mr. Wolfenden, because he's very laid-back as well. And he did agree that he does get on very well. They're both very polite, decent young man, and a great backstory involving other sports as well, particularly, not just football. And, he's a very laid-back guy. And it was lovely to stand over the Portman Road. We went outside the executive box. He looked out and he just looked at me and went, this is proper, innit? This is a proper club. And I thought, you know what, that's nice to hear, and so I was pretty gutted he was dropped on Saturday, quite frankly. But I mean, there you go. But that's not my call, So I'd have been the team all day long, but that's Mr. Cook to judge for.
Super, fantastic stuff. Did you have a little Elton John sing along with him as well, like you did with Luke?
No, no, I didn't have an Elton John sing along with him. But yes, Luke Wolford, he enjoyed that, didn't he, at Culture that night? Yeah, I don't know what brought that on. It was just crazy, but we enjoyed that. But no, not with Joe.
Another time we'll be singing with Pigott. Yeah. Roscoe, we should mention, of course, before we go, the ladies. We've got the Tractor Girls Talk dedicated podcast, so we won't get too much into depth there. But the ladies, at least one Ipswich Town side are winning. They won again yesterday. Just a quick roundup of what happened. They won 1-0, didn't they?
1-0 when it rained. So I got wet again.
It was their first game at home, wasn't it?
Yeah, first home league game. Crawley Wasps were in town and 1-0 win. Blue Wilson scored, but then also got stretchered off, which is a not good sign, as of course she's a new captain. But, hopefully nothing too serious.
Yeah, get better soon, Blue. So the ladies have obviously stepped up a league, and new league, no problem, though. They've won both their first 2 games. So look out for the Tractor Girls podcast with Ross Halls. That's that man. And Katie Sandals. Excellent new addition to the KOA channel. Stewie, Andy, have you got anything else to mention before we take our leave?
No other business.
No other business. There you go then. A historic Kings of Anglia show is in the books. All 5 Kings for the first time. Follow us across all our social medias, Kings of Anglia, on Instagram, Twitter, YouTube and Facebook. YouTube especially, because we're building that there with some exclusive video content, mostly courtesy of the boy Rossi. Leave us a 5-star review on iTunes, because that helps us greatly in the visibility in the charts. And support our sponsors, manscaped.com. Use the code KOA at manscaped.com to get 20% off and free delivery. Everything on that excellent site. And also remember, get your tickets now. Never Lost at Home. New Wolsey Theatre running between Thursday the 16th of September and Saturday the 9th of October. Tickets start from just £10 via the new Wolsey website. Tremendous. Your week has been kicked off in enjoyable fashion. I hope you agree. Have a great one. And we'll speak to you next time.